Been a busy last week for this guy, Coach Rhodes and his team traveling to Springfield and now about to hit the road to Evansville. So we're getting him from his home studio for our final week preview. And, of course, it's with the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament in Evansville this week. Coach Rhodes, regardless of where you're seated, regardless of really the layout of the tournament, it always seems like this time of year it gives a team that new beginning type feel, knowing that it's another opportunity. It's really another season. Do you feel that with your group as you head in here to this week for the conference tournament in Evansville?
Yeah, I think it just, hopefully gives you that extra boost of energy, so to speak. I know, a lot of times, not only our team, but, a lot of teams, whether it's injuries or just the wear and tear of the length of a season, the ups and downs, the mental fatigue, all those things, you kind of hope that that tournament, knowing that a regional berth is on the line, can kind of get you a little more juices flowing, so to speak, and get you a little more amped up to play and, kind of clear the mind and knowing that, whether you finish first or you finished eighth, everybody's got the same, equal opportunity to get into a regional. And, some people have a little bit harder path to get there than others, but it's been done in multiple ways. And, we're looking forward to getting started, achieving that goal of winning that tournament on Tuesday night.
It was an area that we talked about, and you mentioned to me where your team was on the unfortunate end of seeing a team that played on a Tuesday to start off a tournament and ultimately made the run to win the tournament, being Missouri State back in 2022. As your team's gone through it throughout this year, we've mentioned the ups and downs. There's been a lot of adversity your team has fought through. But what about that adversity that your team's had to fight through, Coach Rhodes, that still gives you that optimism that you've said multiple times to me, where you still feel like you have a makeup, you have a lineup that this week could really pose some problems for teams in the conference tournament?
Yeah, I think, when you look at, if you take last weekend, for example, it could have definitely been a weekend that just got totally out of hand for us, and where we go over there and we get swept again. And, we took two tough punches there on Thursday and Friday, and we came back on Saturday and played really well to give us a little momentum to go into the tournament. And, the kind of the message too after that is we're going to have to be able to respond in the conference tournament, whether it's a bad inning, whether it's a couple times where we get behind in a game and we gotta respond and not fall out of the game. Whatever the circumstances are, I feel like we've been through it this year. And, there's going to be some challenging moments in the conference tournament where there's tense pressure moments where some play, some pitch, some swing of the bat needs to be made. And we've been through some adversity this year. So I don't think our guys are going to shy away from that moment. We just need to be able to capitalize on those opportunities. And, my hope is that, we carry over the momentum from what we did on Saturday, swinging the bats, and we get extremely hot going into this tournament offensively, and we're gonna have to have some guys step up on the mound big time for us, and hopefully we can kind of get it all clicking on all cylinders for a week here and get us into a regional.
You mentioned just over this past weekend, I know there was a lot of emotion in Springfield with Coach Gutton with his last full weekend at home, so you knew that Missouri State was going to play well. When the first two games don't go your way, to then come back on Keith Gutton Day to play the way your team did, especially offensively, Coach Rhodes, what was most impressive about how your team ended the weekend on what was an emotional day for Missouri State, and you knew they were going to give their best shot, and you had to get your best shot too?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we've been in that situation a couple other times, and we kind of came out flat on those game three opportunities. And that's what I was probably most pleased with is that we just didn't give the entire weekend away. We came out right from the get-go. We landed a pretty big blow there in the first inning and kind of got all the momentum on our side. And from there, we just kind of, we just kept adding on. And, it was nice to see we never really throughout that game. There's been several times this year where we've kind of gotten off to a great start, and then we fizzled out there for the middle part of the game and let the opponent kind of get back into it. And we knew that they were going to score some runs just because of what the conditions. There's a great hitter's park over there. It was super warm. The wind was blowing out, and they got a really mature physical lineup that hits a bunch of home runs. So it was nice to see our offense just continue to add, whether it was a 3 or 4 run inning or just one that we just got one every now and then. It was huge just to continue to add on to that lead. And again, we, like we talked about many times before, we also just wanted to feel good about ourselves going into the conference tournament. And, obviously the goal wasn't to win one game on the weekend, but for it to be the last game, to have a positive bus ride back to Carbondale, and, to be able to, get on the bus tomorrow still feeling pretty good because you won the last game and go over, have a good practice. We're definitely in a better spot than we would have been if we would have just laid an egg and gave that whole weekend away.
It was an area we somewhat touched up on, Coach Rhodes, in previewing the weekend with Missouri State. It really didn't have so much to do with Missouri State at all. It was just you knew where you kind of were going to be in the conference tournament. You also know the short turnaround in terms of having a weekend series, even though it was moved up a day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and having to go on the road and play again on Tuesday. The scenarios that you had to really run through your mind of how long you threw specific guys, who maybe you wanted to put in certain positions in that final weekend, knowing really can't move up a ton in terms of seed line. The only way you could have dropped was if you lost that last game to be the 8th seed to Missouri State. Well, with those scenarios out of it, how did you kind of approach the weekend, if you really approached it any differently in terms of how you approach a typical weekend?
Yeah, we definitely shortened guys. I mean, I don't think anybody really threw over 50-something pitches at any given time, and we really didn't want to go multiple days with guys because of just taxing the arms and having to turn around and play, on 2 or 3 days rest would have been difficult. The other thing, and we've, I've been kind of staring this down for a couple weeks. We just haven't had an opportunity. Aiden Fuller we've been needing to push him up for several weeks now, but we've been in a situation where he's been throwing, over 100 pitches every single outing that he started. So we just never had the ability to move him up on short rest. And, it was one of those kind of deals where we knew we wanted him to throw the first game on Tuesday. And the only way that we were going to be able to do that is if we really just didn't throw him at all this weekend. And that's tough to go into a weekend and looking at the pitching staff, and you got Aiden Fuller there who you're not even going to potentially use. And we were potentially going to use him to close out the game on Thursday or Friday or Saturday if we had the opportunity to do that, and we had the opportunity to actually win the game. And obviously Thursday and Friday we just weren't in a position to use him. Saturday he was kind of hovering around there to where we had him stretching out there later part of the game. If it would have probably gotten into like a 4-run lead, I would have probably went to him just to close out the game. But as we got closer to Sunday, Monday, only 2 days in between there, I really wanted him to not be used on that Saturday game. That way, he just got a really good bullpen in on that Saturday afternoon. And then, we've got him for full go where there's probably not many pitchers that are going to be running out there on Tuesday that did not pitch on this weekend. So, hopefully, Fuller being able to go out there. I mean, he could throw 100, 120 plus pitches and be full go for us.
It's one of those areas, Coach Rhodes, where I feel like when you're in it and you set the expectation, which you do with your team, which the expectations were high. I know those weren't met going into the tournament this year, but also you look at some of the numbers just from a pitching standpoint, it's still in the upper half of the league and still one of the better team staffs if you want to look at ERA and you want to look at some of the other areas that your pitching staff has done. And as you know, when you get into these tournament settings, not to say one area is more important than the other because you need all aspects of your team to perform this week to have success. But as you head into it, do you feel like when you're in there with Coach Tribby and you're in that dugout watching and kind of going through, all right, here's what we got to run through our head of try to just get through this inning. Do you feel like you got a lot of bullets in the chamber this week as you head to Evansville?
Yeah, I mean, I like our staff, and I like the fact that we have ability to match up with righty lefty combinations, and we don't have it like a traditional left on left, so to speak, or right on right, because we don't have many left-handers in the pen other than Niggett coming out of there every now and then, but if we put guys in the right situation, we have righties who really make it tough on left-handed batters, and we have righties that really make it tough on right-handed batters. And for about a month and a half stretch in the middle part of our season, we really did a good job of matching up our pitchers and the best opportunities for them to be successful. And, some people were out there for 3 outs. Some people were out there for 9 outs, depending on how that lineup structure on the other side of the dugout was in place. And I really think that's kind of where we hit our stride there for, a good portion of our season, and we were throwing the ball well. Where I think it kind of took a little bit turn back in the wrong direction is when we started having to lengthen some guys out and put them in situations again where, not that they can't get people out, but we were putting them in situations to where they probably needed to do more because Mike Hansel and we had a couple of injuries there, and that was tough. And getting Al and Mike back, it hopefully can kind of get those guys back into situations where we get into the tournament, we can put them in situations where we know they're going to be more successful. And that's really all we're trying to do is from a matchup standpoint, from a number standpoint, put our guys in the best situation to where, they typically get those type of hitters out more often, and, we'll have success that way.
I know this week the permanent injuries that you've had all year, from whether it's like a Matthew Shark, not able to get those guys back, but at least in terms of Bennett Eltoff, seems like the last 2 weeks he's seeing the baseball really well. We've talked about the importance of Stephen Loden within your lineup and getting him healthy again. Offensively, as you put together that batting order, I mean, how big has it been to see Bennett really have the last couple of weeks that he's had to really get back to that double machine, that extra base hit machine that you saw a year ago from him?
No, that's been a huge piece. Just one, his physical presence alone when he stands in the box, he kind of gives you that intimidating factor. And two, he's starting to swing the bat extremely well, and just the extra base hit. I mean, you see how key the extra base hits are, and that's what he's been crushing it with doubles over this last probably 2 weeks, and we need that in the heart of the order. We definitely need it, and he's given us a big boost, and hopefully he'll carry that over into the conference tournament. And Lodi, man, I'm telling you, the guy is tough as nails, and there's not many people. I know he doesn't show it necessarily on the field, but I mean, the ankle, what he's doing is there's not many people in the country that would be on the field playing with the ankle injury that he's having, and to be able to play defense at the level that he's playing, to run the bases, to just really stand on the field for every out of every inning that we're playing is impressive. I mean, the ankle injury that he's going, it's a significant injury, and he's making it not seem like it is.
Coach Rhodes, you go throughout the country, and guarantee you this week, and you look at all the conference tournaments, there is always a team that is seated low or high, whichever how you want to describe it, and they come through and they just have a really successful tournament, and they go through. When you look at it with your team, what does your team – I mean, no, it's probably multiple things, and it's not just your team. Every team that's going to Evansville this week probably feels the same way. It's not that the game plan is that much different than anybody. But what do you believe are the few core things that you're really hammering with your team of, guys, if we can do X, Y, and Z, if we can do one or two of these things consistently, we're going to put ourselves in position to have a really fun week?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is if we play simple and smart, we'll be in a good position. And, the one thing that we're probably going to need is if we were to win the tournament, there's going to be somebody on our team that's going to get the most valuable player in the tournament, or there's going to be a pitcher that gets pitcher of the tournament, and we're going to need one of those two things to happen in order for us to step up and win this thing. And that's usually what happens on a team that wins it. Usually there's somebody that has a tremendous week offensively. There's somebody on the pitching staff that has a tremendous week, whether it's somebody that goes out and throws a complete game, saves a bullpen, or it's a bullpen arm that comes out 3 or 4 times throughout the week and just lays it all on the line and eats up a bunch of innings out of the bullpen and has a tremendous week. And that's what we're going to have, and it'll be fun to see what person that emerges to make that happen.
And I don't know, Coach Rhodes, this is always a media talking point. It's for people like myself to really latch onto, and whether it's the numbers side of it, the history aspect of it, because every year, as we talk about, is different and unique. But knowing that the program, SIU, haven't been to the tournament since 1990, haven't won the Valley Tournament since 1990, second longest streak currently right now in terms of a drought of a tournament championship. What it would mean for your team to have such a fun week in Evansville, and you talk about it at length with me at times of, Luke, the passion within this program is unlike any other I've been around. There's so much support for what you do day to day. There's so many fans, and not just the fans, but your guys and the work that they put in, the staff, what it would mean to just bring it into that drought and have a week at the end of the week where you're hoisting a championship when you've been close in this tournament before.
Yeah, I actually saw that tweet from you today where I think Bradley is the only team that has a longer drought than us. And, that kind of stings a little bit because of the quality teams that have come through here since 1990, to not knocked it off yet. It's time to make it happen. And, this program is when you think of all the support, all the people that want this program to get into the postseason, it's as strong of a history and strong of an alumni backing, a fan base, of anybody in our conference, and they deserve to see our team get into a regional. I mean, they want it just as bad as our players and our coaches, and I can tell you there's nobody that wants us to break through and get into a regional any more than everybody in that clubhouse, in that dugout. And, we'll give our best effort this week. I can promise you that. We'll be locked in the best we can. And, hopefully we can get that monkey off our back.
I know it's so cliche, Coach Rhodes, and typical for an announcer to ask almost a cliche question to end our tournament preview, but you as coaches, and you go through the whole year with your team of trying to take the approach of inning by inning and literally at bat by at bat, whether you stay on the winner's side, whether if it doesn't go well and you end up getting knocked to the loser's side, it's easy to look and be like, man, we got all of these innings to make up, but you've done that before because you take it inning by inning. How important is that mindset that you have throughout the year to lead into where when you get into a week like this, taking it inning by inning and not necessarily looking at what is a gigantic picture is probably the recipe for a lot of teams to have success in a tournament?
Yeah, it is definitely that. But I think the biggest key when you get in these type of environments, it's you really need to make the initial punch. I mean, there's something to be said whenever you can jump out in these pressure games to where, as soon as you get into that loser's bracket, I mean, you're starting to feel the squeeze pretty bad. And, whenever you can kind of jump out, get a lead, you start to feel that pressure. In a regular season, you start to feel that pressure as it gets in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings, as far as, how are we going to, structure our comeback here. You start feeling that pressure in the 4th, 5th, 6th innings once you get into these conference tournaments, because every inning that you're behind, every inning that you don't score, you feel like if that opposing team comes up and tacks on 1 or 2, it almost feels like they tacked on 6 or 7. So we've got to do a really good job of right out the gate. We've got to be able to put some runs on the board and really put the other team behind the eight ball. And then once we do that, just, relentless effort of trying to tack on a run or two any way possible throughout the game.
You had great success against Belmont in the regular season, Coach Rhodes. And again, another kind of cliche thing is it's hard to beat a team, let alone 3 times, which you've already done. Even harder to do it 4. Since the last time you saw them, what do you like about Belmont's team? Or really, it probably hasn't changed a whole lot, but what do you like most about their team? I know offensively you really like some of their bats in their lineup.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest key is, the weekend that we played them, it was a very nice weekend for us to play against them. And it was a northern wind. It was blowing straight in for us, and we kept most of their balls inside the park. And, that's going to be a big key is how do we limit, them hitting a home run. And, when I look at the box scores, it looks like they've lost their Friday night pitcher. Now, whether he comes back for the tournament or not, I don't know. But it looks like after the weekend that they played against us, they've lost one of their starting pitchers. So obviously, that's kind of put a little tough wrench in their end of the season too, losing one of their big arms. But they've got good arms other than that one Friday night guy for them. So, my guess is they're going to throw a left-hander at us too, which, we'll have to, find a way with a left-handed heavy lineup to match up with a left-hander and put some runs on the board.
Well, it all starts Tuesday night in Evansville. I'm packing for a week, Coach Rhodes. I'm packing all the way through Saturday, brother. I know you are too, right?
I'm packing a whole week's worth, and I plan on being there throughout the long haul of it. So, it's just this is the exciting time of the year. I wish we could go back and start it all over because it goes by so quick. But this is what everybody ultimately plays for. The opportunity to get into a regional and. We want to definitely stay out of that losers bracket for as long as we can. And, like I said, I hope it's one of those years where it's just upset city and there's a lot of craziness going on in that tournament. And we're right there in the middle of the winners bracket and we take this thing home.
As we've seen, Coach Rhodes, throughout the year, when you and I have had our weekly conversations, whether we're recording or not, conference standings have somewhat flipped when it goes by week to week. So I'm sure this week it will be a fun conference tournament, especially for the fans who make their way over to Evansville to watch the Dogs and watch the other Seven Valley teams competing for that tournament championship. Coach, we appreciate you making time from the home studio here tonight to talk to you and preview this busy week. I know you guys are hitting the road early on Monday to get over to Evansville to practice. Look forward to calling all the Saluki games this week in Evansville for the conference tournament. Appreciate the time, not just, of course, this week, Coach Rhodes, but throughout the season. I look forward to a regional preview with you next week.
That sounds great. Thank you.